All right, today we're going to go ahead and get into 7-2 notes. All right, we're going to be looking at solving for missing sides of a right triangle given another angle in it. All right, so today we're going to be focusing on using sine, cosine, or tangent to solve. All right, so before we get started, we're going to be using a calculator to solve these because we'll be using the sine, cos, and tangent function on your calculator. All right, we got to make sure that your calculator is in the correct mode. All right, you'll notice down here in the red box it says that be sure that your calculator is in degree mode, not radian mode. All right, so press mode on your calculator, make sure it's in degree, and then I want you to press sine 37 with your calculator, sine 37. All right, when you press sine 37 on a calculator, you should see the following decimal, 0.602. All right, double check, see if your calculator's in the correct form. Otherwise, it will give us the incorrect answer for each problem. Here we go. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here's the deal. Earlier in the year, we solved a right triangle. All right, and when we were missing a side on a right triangle, we used what we called the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So that's when we had a right triangle, a triangle with a 90-degree angle and no other angles inside it, and we were missing one side. All right, today we're going to look at what happens when they give us a 90-degree triangle, so a right triangle. However, it has another angle in it. All right, if there's another angle in it, we can no longer do Pythagorean theorem. What we have to do is we have to use sine, cosine, or tangent, so we're going to end up using Soh Cah Toa. All right, now the method for this will be to go ahead and start at the angle that they give us, not the 90, the other angle that they give us. We'll stay with the same thing that we did the day before. We're going to label our sides first, so I'm going to call it O for opposite. Across from 90 is hypotenuse, which means the last side is our adjacent. All right, you'll notice in this picture there's an 18 on the O, there's an X on the H, there's nothing on the side with the A, so I'm going to cross it out. The two letters left on my triangle are O and H. Well, if I go over to Soh Cah Toa, I notice the sign has O and H, so I'm going to go sine of the angle, so sine 34 equals, I need O first, and I need H second. I'm going to solve this. I'm going to multiply both sides by the X on both sides to free up my fraction. All right, this turns into X times sine 34 is equal to 18 then, because our X is canceled. Well, last I'll get X by itself by dividing both sides by sine 34. I'll be left with X equals, and if you divide that, you get 32.189. So I'm going to call it X equals 32.2. All right, so we're going to label our sides like we did yesterday, and depending on what two letters are left, that's going to tell us which function we want to use, sine, cosine, or tangent. All right, let's go ahead and look at another example. Before we start, I'm going to put my handy-dandy cheat sheet right here. Soh Cah Toa. All right, remember, start from the angle and label your sides. I stay with a pattern. I go across, and I always call that the opposite. Across from 90 is always the hypotenuse, which means my last side is my adjacent. I'm going to go back and cross off the O because there's no letter or no number on that side. It's a blank side. I notice I'm left with A and H, so here we go. Cos of the angle, cos has A and H, equals, I need adjacent first, so X over hypotenuse 22. Now you'll notice the difference between the example right before this is that X landed on bottom on the one before this. All right, we're now looking at what happens when X lands on top. All right, so to solve this, I'm going to go ahead and move the 22. So notice we move the thing on the bottom of the fraction first each time. Well, that leaves me with 22 times cos 34 is equal to X, so I'm going to do 22 times cos 34 on my calculator, and that's going to tell me 18.5 0.239. So I'm going to call it about 18.2. All right, so label your sides and then choose your function based on the letters that are left. Now, you'll notice, I'm going to draw a little line here or a little box. You'll notice if you can remember how to do this rather than having to solve and multiply, there's two cases. All right, case one is what happens if x is on top. So let's say we have any function. It could be something like this. If x is on top, it will always be a multiply. We will always multiply the number times the function. You must multiply the number in front of the function. All right, case two is what happens if we have the x on the bottom. If x is on the bottom, case two will always be a division. Doesn't matter if it says sine, cos, or tan. If x is on the bottom, it will always be a division. And when we divide it, it'll always be number divided by function. So really, there's two ways to solve. It's either number times function, or it's number divided by function. If x is on top, it's number times function. If x is on bottom of the fraction, it's number divided by function. All right, if you can remember that, it'll help you solve a little bit faster. All right, let's go ahead and do another example. Here we go. So you'll notice I like to write this next to each problem to help me set it up. All right, that's my handy dandy cheat sheet that I can use to help me. Now, let's go ahead and go through our procedure. Let's start at the angle they gave us, never the 90. Let's go to the side, let's go to the side across and call that opposite. Let's go across from 90 and let's call that hypotenuse, which means the last side is adjacent. Let's go back and cross off the letter that has nothing on its side, so there's nothing on the side H, which leaves me with O and A. Well, if I look at Soh Cah Toa, the T has O and A, so this is going to be a tangent of the angle, equals, I need opposite first, and I need adjacent second. I notice that the x is on top, so this is a multiply, so I'm going to take number times function. So 9 times tan 54 is technically what x will equal. If I multiply that and I round it, I get 12.4. All right, let's go ahead and do one more example of those just to make sure you're picking up the pattern. Again, I'm going to put our little Soh Cah Toa up here so that we have it. All right, now let's stay with our procedure. Start at the angle. Let's go across and label it. It's O. Across from 90 is H, which means my last side is A. Let's cross off the side that has nothing on it. So I'm going to cross off the H. There's no letter or number on that side. So I'm left with O and A. Ooh, this is going to be a tangent again, but notice there's going to be one thing different from the last problem. I need O on top. I need A on the bottom, so 17 over X. After we've plugged it in, I realize that X is on the bottom, so I know that this is going to be a division. Number divided by function. All right, put that into your calculator and round it. It says 12.351, so I'm going to call it about 12.4. All right, let's go ahead and do one other problem, and then we'll do a quick check. It says a ladder is leaning against a house, so we've got this house here. We've got this ladder that's going to lean against it, so let's draw a ladder that's leaning against it. Oh, look at that sweet ladder. Now, what's going to happen here for these word problems is it's going to form a triangle. All right, so you'll notice there's formed a triangle here, and it says that the angle with the ground is 72. So the angle inside the triangle by the ground is 72. If the base of the ladder, the base is the bottom, it's 6 feet away, they want to know how long is the ladder. So I'm going to put an X on the ladder. So let's think about this. We're focusing on basically a triangle that has a 6, a 72, and an x. All right, we'll do Soh Cah Toa to solve it. So let's label our sides. I have opposite, I have hypotenuse, which makes that adjacent. There's nothing on the O side. So I'm going to look at my Soh Cah Toa, and I'm going to decide which one I need to use, sine, cos, or tan. Well, I'm left with A and H, so A and H would be cos, so I'm going to say cos 72 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, I notice that this x is on the bottom, so this is a division. 6 divided by cos 72 will tell us that x is 19.416, so we'll call it 19.4. We're not going to do a lot with the word problems right now. That'll actually be section 7.3 when we focus only on word problems. We're going to skip example 7 for right now. I want to get to these extra practices. All right, for these extra practices, they're going to ask us what side to find. So for example, it asks us to find FD. So we need to go to our picture. We need to put a letter on that line so that we can solve. Now remember, for this whole page, we're going to be using Soh Cah Toa, so I'm going to put it right up here above so that I don't have to keep writing it each time. We'll use this as our reference to solve these 4 problems. All right, so let's go ahead and start with this first one. Let's label our sides first. If I start at the angle and I go across, that's opposite. Across from 90 is hypotenuse, which makes the last side the adjacent. Cross out the letter that has nothing on it, so I'm left with A and H. I notice that's cos. So cos 39 is equal. I need A first. I need H second. Well, x is on the bottom of this, so I know that this is a division. So x equals number divided by function. All right, if you do that, it's going to tell you that x equals 25.7. All right, let's go to example B. It says find IL, so I'm going to go to IL and I'm going to put a letter on it. Let's put an X. All right, let's go ahead and start at the angle and let's label our sides. So I'm going to go across, that's O. I'm going to go across from 90, that's H, which means my last one is the adjacent. I'm going to cross out the letter that has nothing on the side, and I'm left with O and H up above would be sine. So I'm going to say sine of the angle, sine 27 equals, I need O first, H second. I notice that x is on the top of the fraction, so this is going to be a multiply, number times function. If I put that into my calculator, 10 times sine 27 will tell me that I get 4.5. All right, let's go ahead and finish up our last 2. This one wants us to find QR. So let's put an X on QR and let's begin to label our sides. Start at the angle, go across, that's opposite. Go across from 90, that's hypotenuse, which means the last side is adjacent. Cross out the letter that has nothing, and now let's set this up. I have O and H, so I'm going to use sine, so sine of the angle equals, I need opposite first, I need hypotenuse second. I notice x is on top, so this is a multiplication, so x equals number times function. Well, 12.9 times sine 63 will tell us that x will be 11.49, so I'm going to call it 11.5. All right, let's do our last one, find BC, so I'm going to put a letter on BC. I'm going to label my sides. I'm going to start at the 15, and I'm going to go across. This side is opposite. Cross from 90 is hypotenuse, which means the last side is adjacent. Cross off the letter that has nothing. The hypotenuse doesn't have a letter or a number on it, so I'm going to get rid of it. And now I'm going to set it up. I'm left with O and A up above is a tan, so tan 15 equals, I need opposite first, it says, adjacent second. Well, I noticed that x landed on the bottom, so this is a division. So I'm going to take number divided by function. 10.2 divided by tan 15 will tell us that we get 30.06, so I'm going to call it 30.1. All right, so you'll notice I stay with a pattern for each problem. I write my Soh Cah Toa next to the problem. I start at the angle given, not the 90, the other angle given, and I go to the opposite side first. Then I label my hypotenuse, then I label my adjacent. Then I cross off the one that I don't use, and I use those other two letters to decide if it's sine, cos, or tan, and set it up. Remember, there's two ways to solve. If x lands on top of the fraction, we're going to multiply number times function. If x lands on the bottom of the fraction, we're going to do a division, number divided by function. All right, let's get into some practice now.